Okay, so I'm going to start off this review with something pretty serious. And I'm going to start making a habit of this from now on, at least I'm going to try, and that if you have ever been a victim of any kind of assault, this video might be a bit triggering for you. And I know that people roll their eyes at the word triggering, but I promise you, it's an actual psychological term. There are some people who use it as an excuse to claim they're just offended by something, but being triggered is a real psychological thing. I would know. I have PTSD. So, for those of you that have PTSD, consider this your warning. Topics of sexual, emotional, and mental abuse are going to be present in this book. So let me get started by saying, when someone is being abused emotionally, mentally, or in any way, sometimes the manipulation will turn them into someone they're not. And the same can be said for a character named Layla in the book We Are the Goldens, which is what I'm reviewing today. However, the author of this book fails to, I guess you could say, pick up the rear. This is a book about a girl named Nell who was watching her sister Layla slowly lose her mind and fall apart because of the manipulation and abuse foisted upon her by her adult boyfriend. Layla is 17 years old and she's being manipulated by her art teacher. This is a man who has a history of abusing his students. And Layla is so desperately in love with him and thinks it's true love and no one understands that she doesn't see what he's doing. And when people, well, by people I mean her sister, when her sister starts telling her this is wrong, she lashes out at Nell, treats her horribly, yells at her, and does all manner of other things, like faking a pregnancy at one point just to keep this guy with her. As someone who has dealt with emotional and mental manipulation in a relationship, you do things that aren't you. You act in ways you would never think of acting before. But in the heat of the moment and in that time that you're with this person who is abusing and manipulating you, when you're acting that way, you think it's perfectly fine. However, for a book that wants to tackle certain topics such as, in my opinion, statutory rape, manipulation, things of that nature, it's not written well enough to support those themes. The characters are not very well fleshed out, the writing is very choppy, there's not a lot of world building done, and outside of Nell, who is our POV character, everyone else around her just seems kind of meh. Now, Nell does go through a few things. There's actually a very creative comparison between her and her sister. Nell, there was this boy that she liked who got to second base with her, right? But they didn't have sex. Well, he goes around the school saying that he nailed her and she's a hoe and all this. And she reacts as a 15-year-old would. She cries, she's destroyed by it, but she eventually picks herself up and moves on. And then we see that in comparison with what's going on with Layla, who's also being abused and manipulated by a man. Except instead of picking herself up and moving on, she doesn't know how to deal with it. She begins to drown in her own psychosis and starts making very awful decisions in a desperate attempt to keep this man with her despite what he's doing. There are creative ideas and creative elements to this book, but the fact that it's not written very well, the fact that outside of Nell the characters aren't fleshed out very well, it's really hard for me to say this book is good. I deeply appreciate what Dana Reinhardt was trying to do, but I can't in good conscience say this is a good book because there's so much more that could have been done with it. I'm going to go ahead and give We Are the Goldens a C+.